wonder, have you ever asked yourself how to replace your legacy built infrastructure with UI5 tooling? If so, you will get the answer today. And we have invited Florian Vogt and Merlin Beutlberger. They both are developers in the UI5 core foundation team. They're taking care of UI5 tooling and fundamental parts of the UI5 framework. So please give a round of applause for Florian and Merlin.
Thank you. Hello. My name is Merlin Beutlberger, and together with Florian, we're going to show you a project we've been working on over the last year in the team, how we replaced our legacy build infrastructure for the UI5 framework with UI5 tooling. And I'll start by explaining what we actually mean with this. What is this build infrastructure? It's basically the production of the SAP UI5 product. So as many of you probably know, SAP UI5 is a product of SAP. And with that, we have to deliver it to multiple channels. For example, ABAP, Java. We publish it to the CDN, NPM, many other platforms where you can find and use UI5. This means we have to produce all these artifacts for these platforms for over 70 libraries right now, maintained by over 400 developers. So this is quite a big project. And the production basically means optimizing or bringing the resources of all these libraries in shape for use on your clients, like for customers in the client and the browser. So we bundle resources to optimize the performance. We minify resources, create source maps to improve debugging. We compile themes, of course, and we produce a lot of additional metadata files for various tools or things like the demo kit or API reference, MTA builds, or the NPM consumption with the UI5 tooling. I'm going to show you, or here I want to explain what kind of tools we have available for building UI5. So first we have what we call Java UI5 build. And most of you might not know this because it's an SAP internal technology. It was actually the first tool that the team came up with, and you'll see more about this in a second. Then we have the Grunt UI5 tooling, or the Grunt tooling, which more of you probably are familiar with because it was the first open source solution for building UI5 applications and libraries. And then we have the UI5 tooling, which hopefully everyone knows now because it's our current standard offering and solution for building and developing UI5 applications and libraries. Just to give you some perspective on the timeline here, in 2013, the team started working on this UI5 or this Java UI5 build tool. It was the first solution to build and produce the framework. So it was mainly used by the framework itself, SAP UI5 and OpenUI5. As you know, OpenUI5 is part of SAP UI5, so everything we talk about here also affects OpenUI5 to some degree. So it was used for the framework, but also for SAP internal applications and libraries, of course. But there was no offering for the outside world. This only changed in 2014 when OpenUI5 was open sourced, and with that we introduced this Grunt tooling. And you'll hear more about that in a second. Then in 2018, we first released the first version of UI5 tooling. And so we positioned it as a successor of the Grunt tooling. So many projects that were using Grunt tooling then switched over to UI5 tooling. And also SAP internal projects, some already chose Grunt over the Java build. They switched to UI5 tooling, so it became the new standard there. But internally, especially for the framework, we still use the Java UI5 build because it had way more features, even than the UI5 tooling back then. But we worked very hard in the team to close this gap and to add all the missing features to UI5 tooling. So last year, the team was able to replace or to move the framework build from this Java UI5 build to UI5 tooling. And this is basically what we'll talk about in this talk. So to add some more details on these three tools, we have them side by side here. First, we have the Java UI5 build. As the name suggests, it's written in Java. It's basically a set of plugins for the Maven task runner or build tool. Very popular from Java projects, but also used for various other projects. And back then, it was chosen to be used for the UI5 for building the UI5 framework. And we actually still use it today. We stick to it. But these plugins, that's what we talk about here. That's how we build UI5. It's a proprietary solution developed by colleagues in the UI5 team and got never open sourced, so it was only available inside SAP. The Grunt tooling is As I said, the first open source solution, it was based on the back then very popular Grunt task runner. Basically, it's a set of tasks for this task runner that are UI5 specific, like creating component preload or library preload bundles or compiling the less themes. But it had a very limited feature set. It was basically just what I just mentioned, while the Java build had way more features. And then this changed with UI5 Tooling, where we had a first open source solution that we by now have with all the features of the Java UI5 build. And this is, since it's open source, you can just use it. You can have all these features that we had in the framework. And then, of course, we now want to use it in the framework too. So actually, the Grunt tooling we deprecated earlier this year. So this is out of the picture now, which leaves us with these two big tools, the Java UI5 build and UI5 tooling. Which leaves me, or which moves up to the question why we wanted to migrate. So of course, having these two tools naturally doesn't make sense to maintain both at the same time. Whenever we want to add something to the build that we want to use in the framework, for example, or that we want to offer for applications, we have to implement it in both of these tools. That's a lot of effort, especially since it's two different technologies. So we also need expertise for both of these technologies in the team. Then, also since the Java UI5 build has been around for so long, we have a lot of old tools in there. Especially the parser does not understand modern ECMAScript. So it's limited to ECMAScript 5. And this is actually one of the main reasons why the framework itself could not use modern ECMAScript for the longest time. This actually only changed this week. So yeah, I hope this answers the question that Mike rose in the talk right before this one. So yeah, and of course also we wanted to improve performance for the build, because building 70 libraries takes a lot of time, and whatever improvement we can have there, we want. And also we have this great tool, the UI5 tooling, an open source solution that also gets like improvements from the community. We want to use it ourselves, of course. And you will see later other benefits of this. So for us, it was clear we want to migrate the framework build from Java UI5 build to UI5 tooling to ultimately then also deprecate the Java UI5 build and don't have to maintain it anymore and fully focus on UI5 tooling. And this sounds easy, especially since we already said we had the same features in UI5 tooling, but was the result actually the same? So that was the big question for us and kind of the challenge. That we had to solve first. We had to make sure that the build result stays the same, because otherwise we might cause all sorts of issues for a lot of people. So first, we had to get the build running. And this is a small part of the architecture of the framework build, of this production build. And this part that I highlighted here, that's what the Java UI5 build consists of. As I said, it's a set of plugins for Java. And you can see the different plugins. So some is responsible for the theme build, some is for optimizing, minifying files. There's one for bundling. And first we had to replace this with UI5 tooling to still have the Maven build around, because it does a lot of useful things, but replace this inner part with UI5 tooling. And this is what it looked like in the end. We just have this one plugin that basically just executes a UI5 build. And this is really great, because UI5 build I can also execute on my local machine. And I know how to configure this, because I understand the YAML configuration. And yeah, this was really a big step for us to be able to have this in the framework build, and then being able to compare these two builds so we can execute them both and compare what they create. And this is exactly where I hand over to Florian.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Merlin. My name is Florian, and I'm happy to share with you today how we get it on the road and how we get a working mode to get it run. So we have now these two both builds. We have the Java one, the Java old UI5 build, and we have the UI5 tooling build. And now the question was, is the build result the same, and how we can find a working model to get these both aligned. And that was the birthday of the comparison tool, which is a sub-internal tool which we developed, or which we had an idea to develop, to compare these both builds and see where are the gaps, which we already know that there are gaps, and might be there other gaps which we not know before. And that was our basic concept, how we want to tackle them. And now let me share our insights, how we then finally solved that. So we have an internal Garrett system to where we create new changes, updates, and every time a developer creates a new change and he wants to change something in the code base, we trigger in the background 2 new jobs in the Jenkins instance, and we trigger an old build and a new one, and in the end we produce build artifacts. So that's the typical output you already know when you perform a UI5 build. And then we take this build artifacts, there is a little massage on it that we can easier compare them, and then in the end we finally compare both outputs. Comparison means in that case we have a look, are there new files, are there missing files, so on that level, and also on the file content level we look, is there some difference inside of a file. So we do a simple text diff, and we have also special comparison for special files, for example, the manifest.json, which is a special UI5 file. We have better differences detection to see where this content differs. And with that, so we have, in the end, we have then this huge comparison output, and this output is, we call it a snapshot, so we store these differences in one file, and this file contains all the differences which we have. And as you already talked about, we have some known differences where we know that UI5 tooling is better than the old one, and to be good or better, we know that it's a known difference, and that's the reason why we have to align, we have to check which is a known difference and which is a new one which just came up. And that's the reason why we have an SAP internal GitHub repository where we store our expected differences in a branch, and in the default branch of this repository, and we have the new differences which came up every time when a new change is generated or a new change is created, and then we compare these both. So we cleaned up now the differences which we found between both builds. We removed the one which we already know before, and then there's hopefully a small or non-diff anymore. But if there's a diff, then we create a branch in this GitHub repository, create a pull request. If this is a new diff, and if this is not a new diff, for example, it could be, in the past happens often, that some developer is coding something, and then in the first patch set it caused the difference, and then in the second patch set he said, oh, I did something wrong and I changed the configuration, and then another build is triggered, and then the diff is gone. In that case we then close automatically the pull request, and in the case that the diff appears the first time, we create a pull request, and if we detect that this difference appears in other changes too, then we search over the existing PRs and mark the one which is the original one with the change that causes the issue also. So that was the whole automatic processing of the way how we work on that one, and only then we have to do something manually. So that was everything automated. Now we can do something actually, and in that case we have 3 kinds of actions to do. So either we had a look on these PRs which contains the diff and identify the diff, hey, that's exactly what we expect and we want to have, because we have changed something, the tooling, and we have made something better. Then we merge this PR and the expected differences is going to be updated. Or we say, oh, that's something what we did wrong, we have to update our build configuration. So in the end, then we change our build configuration, or we even saw a gap in the UI5 tooling, and we have to enhance the UI5 tooling. So that was an iterative process, and we did that over months to get on the stage where we were able to find a situation where we know now we are safe, on the safe side. So this one is just the 2 screenshots how it looks like in real in this GitHub repository where the bot opens this PR and gives us a background which change caused the difference, and also gives us the two builds, which there we can have a look in the build output, look manually into it, and as a changed file we have this diff. So that was the kind of working mode. And on the right side you see just a typically PR which we have. So the bot then informs us, hey, this diff appears again on another change. And it was a lot of time that we got flooded because changes merged. And then we have to decide if it's now a real bug or it's a real difference or not. And in the end, when we decide, hey, yeah, that's something what tooling makes better, we approved it and we merged it, and that's it. So that was a really powerful tool. And yeah, in the end, summer last year, almost 1 year over, we finally make the switch. And it was really a tough time, and we were really happy about that time. And in the end, it just worked. so we are really happy, and we really celebrated that because no issues appeared, and that was an awesome step for the team. And we were really happy, and it was huge. So what we learned at that time, this comparison tool was definitely a game changer. Before we had the feeling it's quite hard to tackle such a huge migration without this comparison, without disruption on the production side or for you as an end user. And also this, we call it fail early and often, but in the end it's not a failing, it was just that we get notified early, because every time the developer changed something, we get notified. And the developer does not merge it, it's just he opened the change. So we can really tackle issues before they got active in the code base and affects other users. So that was really a game changer. Also that after migration, we really did not really get critical issues. It was smooth phase, and that was really something what we learned also, that with a good preparation you can tackle such a smooth transition. But the scope was really hard to plan. So when we started this project, we thought about, okay, how long we will take for that process, and it was really hard to estimate. Before we had a compare tool, when we had a compare tool, it was still hard because we have to identify how long we will take for which step to align, and that was really something also that for huge projects it's hard to estimate. So what are our future steps? So as you might remember the slide from Merlin, in the beginning we have this chart with the different layers, so which parts, which apps, libraries are using which build. And the missing part is now that there are still some sub-internal apps which are still using the Java UI5 build. And now it's the goal for us to go in a conversation with them and to offer them a possibility to use also the other UI5 tooling build. And with that, we have one single solution for all builds inside of the UI5 application infrastructure on our side, and that's really an important step forward. Also, what is a general topic for us is to keep the UI5 tooling as slim as possible. So we don't want to blow it up and to make it a more monolithic code base. So we want to keep it slim, only the building, a little server task, but in the end it should stay slim. And for that, we have created the UI5 Tooling Extensions repository, which is available at the SAP GitHub org, which includes every standard UI5 Tooling extension provided by us, by the UI5 Tooling team, by SAP, and which is also maintained by us. And currently, this is one package is currently inside of that, which is the UI5 code coverage middleware. That's the middleware which enables the tooling to provide you code coverage for ES6 Plus tests. So if you write ES6 Plus code and you want to have code coverage in your browser, then that's the tool for you to use. And said that, thanks a lot for your time, and we are looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you, Florian. Thank you, Merlin. So maybe we take 1 or 2 questions, because I know you're also at the show floor at 1:45. And did you bring your fan club with you? Because there was a quite big cheering at the beginning.
Ah, didn't know that.
So what would you like to know more? Here, that's for
Whoa,
you.
that's far.
I don't do that.
That's far. I try my best.
Yeah?
Almost.
So we have a question at the back row.
Transition to the UI5 tooling, are you still running the comparison tool? Because you said that, or in the timeline we saw that the Java tooling is still used by some projects, and so now you could use it in reverse to detect when there is something new in the UI5 tooling to also implement it in the Java tooling.
I can take that. Yeah, that's a good idea, but actually we just don't really want to touch the Java UI5 tooling anymore.
Okay.
We don't use it for the framework build anymore, and that's what we use the comparison tool for. So now it's only used for applications, and we don't really touch it, so we just let it run as is. Maybe we'll use it again to their transition to UI5 tooling, but that's to be seen, maybe. Thank you for the question.